call to order the meeting of September 11, 2023 of the NACUS project. Shorthand.
Yes.
So first, we need approval of the July 24 committee meeting minutes. Does anybody have any corrections, or do I hear a motion to approve?
I motion that we approve the July 24 meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Yes. Signal aye
Aye.
or nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Were you in there, Sam? So we do have time for public comment. Before I even do that, do you have something? I would kind of like to pull a Barb and just remind everybody that we should be kind and respectful. Just mean that for people giving public comment. I think we need to do that as a committee too. I know sometimes we have differences of opinion, and I just think we need to are respectful when we get into that position. I know we're not going to agree on everything that we're working on. This is a public process. It's a public project. It's certainly not the perfect process or the process that any of us would design or the facility necessarily that we would design. But we've heard from stakeholders, we've heard from citizens, we've heard from local businesses. And so I guess my request is that we do have the tough conversations in this room as a committee. I hope that we can avoid some of the outside of committee communications, if they're going to be feeding misinformation or dug in opposition where we really don't expect people to change their minds. So I think we have an opportunity here to create something really amazing for the community and would like to get buy-in all the way around on that. So with that, do we have any public comment?
Yes, Jim.
Okay. Be kind and respectful.
Of course. So I am concerned about the unanimity of purpose that is exhibited by the committee. And as many of you or most of you would be aware, there were some back and forth emails from Mayor Sam to the all of you, from me to all of you. And I had, and also some social media posts, not by Sam, he's not on Facebook, but by Andrew. And in one of my back and forths with Sam directly, I said, hey, you wrote about, this is like the NASA thing, there's $1,000 hammer. What's the $1,000 hammer? We'll get rid of it if nobody wants $1,000 hammer. And Sam's comment was, let's see, I see a project as $1,000 hammer. And he's expressed his support for this project in the past, but I think it's difficult when he sees the project itself as the problem. Similarly with Andrew, he had quite a few posts on the Protect Cannon Beach page where he, expressed that, gee, we should be doing, low-income housing, which I buy into for sure. before we do this. It's not clear to me as an outside observer that Andrew's on board with this project. And so I would ask the committee to consider carefully moving forward whether everybody on the committee has actually bought into what the mission statement is of the committee. That's all I've got. Thanks.
Okay, and that's why I wanted to lead up with some of those comments. Sam, I'm glad we're having this conversation here and less outside of this circle. So thank you. Would you like to say anything? Just
the focus for this group, task force, is to create a operations for a facility. My sense, and always has been, is that the operations could fit however the facility itself does. So in that sense, the way we are heading towards management and operations of a good goal, that location. That's what we're doing here. The design and the process of getting to where we got to, that's a totally different problem. I will support however we wind up as a facility. And however we create the operations will fit whatever that is. So that's my sense on that.
okay, thank you. And you have our resolution handy,
I can get it handy very quickly.
because I believe that one of our key missions here was to define use of the facility. The design, that's essentially at this point, it's a council job. I do hope that the function that this committee agrees on, we can make some adjustments on design based on that. But really it's not part of this committee's job.
And really what we should be doing with those is advising the council.
Yes.
We would, right?
And I made a few comments at the last council meeting about that, about some things where we saw, or maybe the use we've identified now is not where we started in the design process. So I just wanted to make sure that there's communication, and Dustin assures me he's listening to all of our meetings. And so anyway, we'll keep moving forward. And is that handy?
Yep. So do you want me to read the part where it talks about the?
Yes, yes.
Okay, whereas the City of Cannon Beach Council desires to appoint a 7-member advisory committee to assist researching the use, operational budget, and management of how other entities operate and maintain facilities similar to the Cannon Beach Elementary School rejuvenation project. This advisory committee will report its findings and suggestions to council. And then it does another, whereas the conclusion of the process, the committee will be disbanded. And then it says, now therefore be it resolved that the Common Council of the City of Cannon Beach hereby establishes a 7-member Cannon Beach Elementary School Rejuvenation Research Committee, Advisory Committee, to research the use, operational budget, management, and report to council.
Okay.
The 2 sections that talk about the.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so let's move on. Actually, I also wanted to mention that, Jan, do you have something now?
Just wanted to say a quick thing. Do I have to go and tell?
Why don't you? Let's be as official as we can be.
Ann Siebert Warman, PO Box 778, Cannon Beach. I just wanted to say, I think this is a wonderful group, and I really do think you all basically work really well together. And I also think that we're a big enough big in the heart community, that I think we need to be welcoming of all opinions. And I think we also need to try to trust that people are doing the best we can with a very huge bunch of things going on. And so I hope that we can embrace people's heartfelt and well-meant opinions, even if they are not going along with what each of us might want to see. So somehow we need to be able to do both, like move forward, but also embrace all these different ways of moving toward a goal. And I just hope we can do that. So I think everybody's trying. And it's not easy.
Yeah, thank you.
I think we shouldn't try to, stop diverse views, because this is a democracy and we need to try to listen to all of us all the time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we do see a lot of it. Saw communication today, supporting what we do, and I certainly see people in opposition. So my comments were really about this committee, and it's our job to come together as a committee and work towards a common goal. So, but we certainly don't want to shut down any opinion. So thank you. So I also, before we dive in, I did want to report that Travel Oregon got back to us, and they would like us to, they've invited us to submit a grant based on our letter of intent. So essentially they've invited us into the grant proposal project to formalize that $100,000 ask.
And what's the timeline? It's short, right?
The timeline is this Friday.
That's only Monday.
So I was going to stay on that with Tessa and Bruce, essentially based on our letter of intent.
Okay.
Uh,
That's great.
But to me, it's just, it really shows the potential of this project, that Travel Oregon sees it as a significant celebration of Oregon culture and diversity, as well as its potential impact on environmental stewardship. So I hope that gives us some assurance that we're kind of on the right track here.
Yeah, great.
So I would like to keep this meeting to hopefully no more than an hour and a half. And I would like to see if we can maybe open up some of these conversations, but then hopefully break up a little more into subcommittee, and let's get some work done between meetings, rather than trying to hash it all out here. We've done a little bit of that, but I think we can get better. So the first item on the agenda was committee member discussion. And that relates, yes.
I just want to let y'all know, I did hear from Dick and he said he'll be late, but he's coming.
Okay, we know he'll be late, but he is coming. That's the good news. So that committee member discussion, we'll have a little bit of it before he gets here. But the idea was to look at him coming onto the committee as an official member. You heard our resolution, we're a 7-member committee. So unless someone didn't want to continue on this committee, we would need to change the resolution if we're going to add 1 or 2 more people. Now, Les and I did have the conversation that he was questioning his continuing, or maybe it was more an offer to make room for Dick.
The letter, when I responded to you and Tess, was that I would be willing, if you needed me to step down to make room for Dick Bash.
Or
Not asking to get off of the committee.
Okay.
In that sense, but I think Dick's inclusion is important, and if that's the way it needs to be, I'm willing to do it.
but I think we could also have another resolution.
Oh, that's, yeah, and again, I'm not trying to
I second that.
push
Yeah.
anybody in any
Yeah.
direction.
Because I think you have some valuable
Mm-hmm.
insights. And your work on the budget has been very helpful also.
I agree.
And so is it appropriate then to do a new resolution with an 8-member committee, or do we want an odd number? Any thoughts on that?
I don't mind having 8.
I think 8's a nice number.
Yeah, unless there's,
I personally don't want to see it grow anymore.
right, because then you run into.
Okay, so then we're gonna at the table.
Quick question. Do you want to change this to an 8-member committee, or do you want to change it to adding Dick Bash to the committee? Because if you change it to an 8-member committee, if Dick leaves or anybody, you would still replace that person.
Well, my only question was the resolution didn't have people's names in it.
Or you could say a representative from the Clatsop County, Clatsop Halem tribal member.
Yeah.
Because that would be the difference.
Have equal committee privileges or something like
Yeah,
that.
it would be
Structure it that way,
a
so.
member plus a representative, and I'd have Ashley word it.
Right.
That would specify that you want a member from the tribe as opposed to a citizen.
Okay.
That's a great idea. Pardon
That's
me?
a great idea.
That's a good
then,
idea.
Then it will take a resolution passed by council before that becomes official.
Yep.
So essentially tonight we will be, we'll continue as the committee that we're working under the current resolution.
In my conversations with Dick, I would recommend that we make him a equal member.
Oh,
It is.
I don't think, but yeah,
That's what we're talking about.
yeah.
All right, okay, thank you.
We just want to specify that the 8th person is a member of the tribe, not a
Okay.
citizen.
All right, good point. Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next item is review city council's direction, and I think everybody either was there or has heard that after we reported this committee's recommendation on use management and the operation budget, the council actually asked us to continue our work. We kind of threw out there the possibility of forming that steering committee or having them organize a steering committee. And essentially they asked us to continue our work under the current resolution to continue to flesh out additional detail on use and begin the process of the initial steps toward a nonprofit organization. And the council seemed united on the direction that we were headed. So I think that's kind of what we wanted to do, is give full council a broad stroke of what we were looking at. And they have asked us to proceed. So it would be time for us to begin discussing that added detail to the broad stroke of recommendations. And hopefully you've referred to attachment A in the packet, which includes that include those recommendations. I also sent something out earlier. So what I'm thinking is let's have hopefully brief discussions about this and see where we land. And then if we can form subcommittees to address each of these areas, that would be my preference. So I don't think it's necessary for us to add detail to the primary use statement that we established. It seems like that's it's pretty well defined, and I expect really a nonprofit will take that and run with it. Though we may be looking at creating a mission statement at some point. I'm thinking that we should take a specific look at classroom use, event use, gymnasium recreational use, and then what those initial steps may be toward organization of a nonprofit. So Can we try this and see if it works and where it lands us? So let's start with classroom use. Our recommendation that we provided was the NACUS facility will provide classroom space for educational programs, presentations, and meetings, emphasizing but not limited to arts, culture, history, and ecology. So that's a pretty broad stroke. It doesn't necessarily leave anything out. So my question to you is, my questions are, what will be allowed? What will not be allowed? Maybe if you have some ideas about fee structure, we can have that quick conversation too.
I've been spending some time going back to each of the comparable facilities that Deb had identified for us and trying to drill down to what exactly do they allow? What types of events do they do? And if where I can, how do they charge for it? And I'm only scratching the surface. And I think I felt like that was an important piece of what we were asked. Because the way I kind of heard the council's feedback was more in the line of, okay, so you've got this operating cost that we put together, but where's the revenue that go with it? I think they were, and so in order to do that, we have to decide what the uses are going to be, and we need to figure out what kinds of revenues might be possible. But anyway, but I do think that there is a lot of examples for us to look at as far as what other similar facilities do in terms of their income. I guess where I was going with this is I think that's an important piece of what we need to do. But a lot of these also have significant grant income, and in particular, the Dungeness one has a lot of grant income too.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure that we've talked about how are we going to, at this early stage of the game, how are we going to quantify what the grant potential is? But that is going to be a big piece of the pie.
Well, one of the things, once we know what kind of uses it seems like that's going to fall into place, like educational things. We could get lots of money for educational projects and.
How would we quantify it? I mean, or maybe we don't need it, but I mean, to me, if I were to go back and talk to the council, I would want to have, some more concrete examples maybe, or, something rather than just saying, well, there's lots of money. And I don't know any more than there's lots of money out there right now.
The best way of this, I've noticed in some of the examples that we had for the research was that they always designated the difference between tickets, sales, gift shop sales and stuff like that. And then grants was always a very specific line item. And the best that we could do at this point is to take that research and say, these folks are getting X amount. Let's spitball and throw in an amount there. But never really trust it to be
Right.
We have to get everything else to at least line up for expenses before we say, okay, now we're going to get grants somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's an important part of the conversation, and I don't know how to.
And I guess we're really talking about two things here. We're talking about the programming that the center is going to put on and maybe reaching out for grants for. We're also talking about third-party use of the classroom facilities. So there's two things to look at. And so, yes, when we get farther along with what the actual center's programming will be, then that will at least help to inform us on the grant potential there. So I don't know if, we kind of need to look at those individually moving forward.
This is a tough conversation because you're looking at scheduling at the same time as you're looking at rate structures and uses all at the same time. And it's kind of challenging.
Yeah.
I would almost say let's let's just lay out a rate structure. Commit to it. If it doesn't work, we can always come back and fix it when we talk about uses and scheduling. And that would just be, or other way around, is lay out a schedule and say, let's see how this works with the rate structure, or just something like that.
So,
Carrie,
Hey, Sam, that's exactly, I totally agree with that. This is, so when we began our event business here at Zenith Vineyard, we looked at the competition. We figured out that we wanted to be in the 50th percentile of competition. We didn't want to be the most expensive. We didn't want to be the least expensive. And then the occupancy rate is going to drive your desirability for your rates to either go up or to go down. So one of the things we need to do is we need to look at all the spaces in Cannon Beach that are being used at this point, for what purposes, see what spaces we can contribute that will be a positive influence on the community. In other words, maybe a bigger group, or maybe a breakout, multiple room type of thing, whatever we're looking at. But it's exactly right, Sam. You grow your fee structure from, you set a point and then you negotiate. And as you get competitive and you have more desirable spaces and rooms, then you can have your rates go up. And then obviously you have all the opportunity to be very knowledgeable about grants, so that you can offset costs for more people to be more inclusive to more groups.
I'm hearing a little bit of a mashup still of those two proposals where Sam is really talking about, I believe, and just see if I'm hearing correctly. Looking at the schedule of the center's actual events, the actual events that our nonprofit will be producing, and that will more inform then what potential outside events can occur. Is that what I was hearing from you?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Because, what the nonprofit creates as an event, what might come from another nonprofit in the community, like
Third party.
or something like that.
Mhm.
And also what might come from outside. So literally you have three versions. And how that might use the facility. That's a scheduling challenge, because I think you're going to have one in the summer more than you're going to have one in the winter, that kind of stuff.
I would like to see our center be available to all community nonprofits free of charge.
Wow, that's great.
Yes. So that if Colvin Arts Colony wants to have a meeting or an art show that's raising funds for their organization, it's free of charge. Or there's a maintenance charge for cleaning it up and that kind of thing.
So you're saying available to all Cannon Beach nonprofits, free of charge or super minimal charge for
To cover expenses. Maintenance expenses.
Gary?
yes.
So again, that's what we do in our business here. If the fire department comes and wants to do their Christmas party here, we have a very minimal janitorial setup fee, and don't charge them for that. Nonprofits, if they're coming to our business and they're doing it as a fundraiser, then we have a very minimal charge for the first year. And then we have an escalating charge up to what the normal rental rate would be for a wedding or a birthday party or an anniversary or whatever, as their fundraising effort succeeds. So, we've had, family building blocks here at Zenith Vineyard for, over 10 years. And we just did a graduating scale as their event became more and more, profitable and more successful. So you don't negate the fact that there's monies that need to be earned, but you're still very much a community advocate by working alongside those groups to make sure that, you know, it's a win-win for everybody.
Thank you.
I think we've got a few other things you might want to add some detail to what Barb's talking about. Is we've got the nonprofits that are doing a fundraising type event compared to those that are actually doing a ticketed event. It's not specifically for fundraising, it's for themselves, which is a fundraising because they're a nonprofit, but that's a different kind of, so trying to think of the differences. Get Lit would be one that I would say is a very important one that we need to consider compared to
And that's a ticketed
that's a
event.
ticket event, but it goes to them as a nonprofit.
Right.
Maybe the library book sale, that's something that could expand into the space. I'm just trying to think of the variety of events that we do have within that designation of being a local nonprofit.
Right.
The other thing you might want to think of was a citizen. In the same regard as a nonprofit.
Well,
If they wanted to have a birthday party or, I mean,
Or if we have an artist that wants to do a class on painting.
right, yeah.
a class is one thing. A class is one thing because they're receiving income from doing a class, or if they're doing an art show with their artwork for sale, then it incurs a fee. But if they are, you know, doing a service to the community, then it is, if it like a let's take the CERT group wanting to do a safety fair. Then it would, you know, that's not a ticketed event. It's a community outreach event, and we wouldn't want to charge for that. I wouldn't want to charge for that. If it's the, you know, if it's a medical screening event, we have a medical screening group that comes 4 times a year that does, you know, free screenings for health. So we charge, I think we charge them like $400, whatever it is for janitorial and for set up of chairs and tables. So very minimum, but it's pretty easy to, don't make it complicated, because we've done over 1,000 events at Zenith Vineyard. So we have a huge backlog of all sorts of things that we've done that have been community outreach as opposed to ticketed, you know, events. And definitely when people are paying money to come in, then you can share in that.
Do you think one subcommittee is going to work to address this issue of classroom use? Or do we need a subcommittee to address the center's specific use? And look separately at the third party events coming in?
Okay, Barbara.
I think I understand what you're saying, but what my thought earlier was that the educational portion had its own kind of, I mean, I think of the gym less as an educational part of this. And so I kind of see the event and the educational as separate.
Separate fee schedules.
Yes, right.
Absolutely. And actually, I was trying to just focus the conversation on the classroom use.
Okay.
Whether that's educational programs, presentations, meetings, you know, bridge club,
Right.
you know, community things. So, and Sam's example of Get Lit is one that's may cross over, you know,
Yeah.
they may want to use classrooms for breakout sessions and then have their big grand thing in the gymnasium with catering. So there's going to be some crossover here for sure. But I guess I'm
going to ask you, Gary, do you want to divide it up into the spaces and try and sort out how we use the spaces? Or do you want to divide it up into the idea of what is the fee schedule? And throw out, you know, all of the different possibilities, like the big event chooses everything down to just a classroom or a story circle or something smaller. So that we can figure out a fee schedule that then To me, those are two different discussions. I would think a committee could sit down and create some sort of fee schedule. At least as an opening idea, so we could talk about details.
Yeah, there might be a fee schedule committee that looks at all of the facilities. I think that's very reasonable. But I guess what I'm wrapping my head around here is the actual center's events that, you brought up that we're going to be working around. And do we need a committee on that? So maybe a committee, I keep looking at Betty because I think Betty would be great to be a part of it, if not at least leading it on what the center's educational program actually looks like.
One of the things I was thinking too is when you have a school, you have a calendar, you figure out a year ahead. And I'm thinking for instance, the salmon celebration, if we created a calendar and we put the things we know we want, and then we see what space and time and things that we have space for, that might be a good place to start, because there's a lot of things that Christmas concert, things that we really want this community to focus on or to have space for. And then it'll sift out, and maybe we only have a few weekends that we don't have anything. So I think we might want to start with the calendar and talk to the different parties, for instance, the tribal connection, what spaces, what times, and the different nonprofits, what would they need it for? That will give us a sense of working with the community. Then we can figure out what time or space we have after that.
I would sure like to see you take that on.
Okay. I will.
And I don't know if you got someone else you'd like to work with, or Dick, but I mean, looking at, environmental things, programming, the cultural programming, and come up with some kind of, at least the start of a schedule that we can.
Well, actually, I've kind of been doing that with Les,
Okay,
and actually with Mindy's letter.
yes,
I reached out to Mindy, I reached out to Angela, I reached out to Dick, I reached out to Doug Durer, and Lisa from HRAP. And I'm supposed to reach out to later, I'm going to reach out to Katie Volke and Graham Clegg. And just Dick's idea was to get a library of you have everybody sending in things that have already been created. Like Dick said that there's lots of curriculum that's already been created that we could use. And I know that there's curriculum that connecting with what HRAP does also, but then connecting with other nonprofits that are already doing, so that we won't be reinventing the wheel. And then we could do site-specific programming for ourselves too.
okay,
If that would
I had one thought, getting back to the nonprofit specifically. I think we've kind of been talking about Cannon Beach nonprofits, but from the community grant side, there are a lot of nonprofits that do a lot of work here that aren't located here, but might very well like to have a venue in the South County.
be a great
I'm
idea.
just wondering if we need to be so specific at this point to not let United Way or Lighthouse or somebody like that come in.
So what if we said nonprofits that impact the quality of life in Cannon Beach? Just
I would be
like we do it-
100%
just like we do in the grants.
Yeah.
Mhm.
okay, so Betty,
Okay.
I
Les,
think she said that.
you got this,
We're going.
I think you've got this ball rolling. Can we expect a report from you that starts to give us a look of what the center's actual programming could look like?
The classrooms.
The classrooms,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, specifically the classroom.
Yeah.
I don't know, do we want to take a broader look? I know this last weekend was Salt Makers Return in Seaside. And, I think we've got some opportunities for living history, things like that too, that may not be in the classroom. Should we actually include more of the entire facility? Or do you want to?
I'm willing to, but I don't want to be a pig. I mean, I want more, I want everybody to, that's why,
If you're working on scheduling, you have to include the entire facility.
Okay,
Because there are large events that will be scheduled.
Yeah.
That take up the full,
right, you're right.
or take up different parts of the facility during a certain timeline. So you have to include the whole thing.
You're right.
I think I agree.
Day trap is a good idea because on a wet day, they might be inside, on a dry day, they might be outside.
Yeah,
So, plus you also have the community gymnasium components.
Yeah.
So you've got scheduling that could happen weekly. The same thing every week. You've got seasonal differences. So you've got the summer difference and winter and the shoulder season. So it's a complex thing, but the best way to do it is just to lay out a year.
yeah.
Right.
Then we have something to throw to agree or disagree on.
But I
But
also,
the nice thing is, Sam, that what you're talking about is that, you can do a monthly meeting. And then they do have a Christmas party, or they have one fundraiser a year where they want to use the gym, so just start penciling those things in, because the more we have in our Rolodex of need, the better it's going to look, and the more inclusive it's going to look to the community.
Okay,
And what were you gonna say?
I would just caution that we want to be careful not to schedule big events. We want to schedule those big events during the shoulder season. Yeah.
And I think this may not be the appropriate time, but we've also got to remember that we've got to stay true to the stated use of the money that we're using. And so, some of the events have got to draw people in some way.
any other feedback for our newly formed subcommittee?
Well, I was just less to that point. I was just thinking of, Paul Duber having to, cancel the buskers in the park last Thursday. Because not this last Thursday, but the Thursday before, because of rain. How delightful it would have been to being able to move them inside the gym, and still have that music event for the public and not have to cancel it.
Well, Harry, I went so far as to think, well, what if we were able to have buskers all year round?
Exactly. We'd all love that. So I think that I would love that. So I'm a faithful attendee whenever I possibly can. So.
Yeah,
I didn't mean to.
I was just gonna say that's how concerts in the park always were when the elementary school was running.
Really?
Yeah, we just moved to the gym.
wow,
Yeah.
that's great, yeah.
Any other feedback regarding that schedule that we want to give them? I'd rather not solve it now, but the things like the seasonal concerns, these points are
To keep all
good.
that in mind.
Yes, and I'd love as much feedback as I can get, because I don't want to be a dictator.
I don't think we're gonna.
Just want to,
Don't think so, Betty.
we want it to be,
Not with this group, we'll let you know.
I'm kind of like, be a dictator and then bring it back and,
Yeah.
okay,
One of the logistical concerns, you've got 3 classrooms, one potentially a doubled room. You've got the gym, the lobby, the exterior. Don't forget about the exterior
That's true.
portion.
yeah,
yeah,
But you also got the possibility that some of these are going to be used simultaneously.
yes.
And you've also got the kitchen.
Yeah.
So one might be using the kitchen where the other one isn't, or vice versa.
Yeah.
So there's challenges with whatever use you're throwing out. If you're guessing at an arts program, this is one of my things. It's better to say a classroom holds X amount of people. And it will work from a certain amount of time. Rather than saying it's going to be an arts program. Okay, fine, still going to use X amount of people in a certain amount of time.
Right.
So,
Okay, I think I look forward to seeing what you come up with, and I'm happy, if you want to share with us and get feedback, I think is that okay? We can,
As long as it goes through Tessa first.
okay,
Yeah, and then she sends it to us.
so we can provide some feedback if you want to run things by us.
I think as long as it's 3, no more than 3.
Okay.
It's,
Right, well,
once you're on the 3, you're always on 3. Nobody else can switch you out.
You don't want to reply to all.
Or you don't want to apply to all, but if you're like, if a subgroup is going to meet, then it can be 3 people.
right. But we're talking
Okay.
about, once they come up with a plan, I guess they presented it at a meeting.
I was
Yeah.
expecting.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's someone else you two would like to work with. I mean, maybe Dick.
Yeah, Dick would be great.
Uh,
I don't feel like we can do it without Dick.
Yeah.
There's,
Right.
absolutely.
So you can start working with Dick
Mhm.
now because.
Yeah.
And I think Barry would have some really good insight as to scheduling events. It sounds like you've done a lot more.
well, I'm saving Carrie for the next, but before we get there, is there anything we don't want to see in the classrooms? Some way that we limit what happens.
I've been kind of hoping Dick would come in because I really feel like I would like to hear his perspective, but I would really like to know what kinds of things are not going to be acceptable. What is going to be disrespectful to the site? Because to me, that was a conversation we kind of had, and I guess we all had some idea about what maybe some of those might be, but I think we really need to know from a tribal perspective. I would have said up front that the food pantry really didn't fit, and yet that wasn't the feedback we got at all.
Right.
And so we may be surprised at the kind of things that are okay, or maybe are okay if they're done in the right way, but I'd sure like to have that feedback.
Is that something that feels like it fits a consideration of what we would not want to see happen there as you're working on? That
Especially,
is kind of a third party thing that we're, and it seems like your task here is more. Like keep it focused there. And
Well, I thought when I read the Dungeness, how they do it, they specifically state, and it's it sounds very welcoming, but it says, ecology. I mean, they have very specific things that you can do. And I think that since they're run by a tribal community, I think we might want to we'll talk to Dick about that and just get a sense of it. I mean, we can always talk about it together, but
Sam was shaking his head and I think
I think it's better to say what we want.
rather than what we don't
List
want.
out, like what Betty was saying, list all the stuff we want.
Mhm.
And if somebody comes up with something that fits one of our categories, we don't want it, they have to defend themselves. Whereas if we have a bunch of stuff we don't want, we have to defend ourselves against somebody trying to work around. So, and you could go on and on and on trying to figure out all the stuff you don't want. It's easier just to lay out what you want. We've got a good start and we can pillage what they wrote and add to our own stuff.
But
We have a basis already of art, education,
Mhm.
and heritage.
So,
Anyway.
okay, I see your mission pretty clearly. It's the center's programming. But I think it's Sam's idea. The idea then is to have another group looking at use, third-party use and fee structure. So that's kind of what I was saving Carrie for. because that's where I think she's got a lot of experience to bring to this. So, and maybe that question, obviously that question is going to be something we're going to have. What are we going to allow? What are we not going to allow when it comes to third-party events? Maybe less of an issue with classrooms,
Right.
a bigger issue when it comes to the whole facility. And yes, Dick should be part of that conversation as well. So, Carrie,
Yes.
I just nominated you.
Hey,
I
that's good.
second.
I accept. I also wanted to speak to the, the fear of what we don't want. We've been running Zenith Vineyard for 15 years, over 1,000 events. We just have, there's not one event that we've ever contracted with where we said we shouldn't have done that event, other than giving things away for free. So you do want to have contracts with people. You do want to have some kind of skin in the game. You want to have an understanding that you're working together, management and client are working together, and you just don't have a problem. So it's not a walk-in, anybody who wants to use the facility gets to use the facility. It is a managed, with purpose, with mission statement facility. And I think, I totally agree with Sam, and I know, Betty's heading in that direction too, that the positive, defined, excitement about what we want to do is going to overwhelm whatever, disagreeable things might come across the horizon. We can deal with them when they hit us.
Is there somebody
yeah,
that
I can do fees.
is so fee structure for all the potential uses? If a third party wants to use the classroom, if a third party wants to use the lobby, if a third party wants to use the gymnasium, if a third party wants to use outdoor space, of those same considerations as far as seasonal, probably some of the feedback already that you've heard about community or nonprofits that serve the community being
Right.
yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And again, a lot of this is based on, community money public money that we have. It has a lot of different factors, but sure. I don't have any problem with coming up with a good menu for council to consider.
Is there some support that you would want in this? Some additional committee support that you would like to work with, or?
I think that, Sam, you got such a good breadth of community knowledge. You're way ahead of me as far as sources of what people have been doing and fees that have been paid. Could you help me with that?
Sure. And I think we also need Andrew, because he's got the better connection with because of Colabana Hall. He knows what has been available. So I think the three of us could work it out pretty well.
Yeah, I just would like to have a real schematic on what is already exists in Cannon Beach, so that we're not reinventing, but we're also really complementing what's available with what more more participation we can involve the community and the visitors.
Well, why don't we start with that? Let's have a very kind and respectful subcommittee of the three of you that starts to look at third-party use and fee structure.
Right. We still got to ask Andrew if he wants to work with me, because we'll have to see.
Well, and
that's a question. That's a question, not an answer.
I think you should bring it all forward to the rest of the committee.
Right.
Whether you agree on it or not, I think that
It should be discussed.
that we should, when we get there, discuss it as a full committee.
Right.
So let's not edit it too much. Let's see what you think for this, and then we'll deal with it as a group.
Okay, so hey, Gary, let me just get a little bit more defined on this. you want more of a core dump on what fees are out there, or you want us to actually come up with a proposal of fees? I mean, there could be a first core dump of this is what's being charged and these are the utilization of the spaces that already exist in Cannon Beach. And we see a need to do X, Y, and Z. But then from that could come a proposal of where we start with fees.
Let me twist that a little bit and say a proposal with validation of the information from around town.
Okay,
And related sites as well. We've
Right.
got lots of examples of different facilities hosting different kinds of events. So there's some backup in the research.
And actually what we're doing, what we're creating is a model because we know it's going to get
Yeah.
down the road.
Definition only.
It will for sure get changed. So yes,
of course.
a first
Yeah.
go round.
Let me throw out one question for this group because it just occurred to me. We've talked about nonprofits and community events. We haven't talked about a relationship with the hotels. Could this facility have some sort of fiscal relationship when it comes to being able to plan for an event where the hotels are going to be included? Because they're going to want to rent rooms connected to an event. Let me use Get Lit as an example. They have people that come from quite some distances staying at the hotels. The hotels get the customers, but they usually like to have a discount for when you go to an event. And like group packaging. I don't know how that would work for the rates that we would offer, but it might be something to think about.
Carrie has mentioned to me outreach to the hotels.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's something you could consider in that we could offer them something. And yes, I can get you some contact information still if you want to try. I know sometimes they don't take time to provide you with too much insight into their business. But if we could just find out how we could work with them, I think that would
be a healthy approach.
Right.
Yeah. And I appreciate you bringing that up because that's kind of been one of my concerns. I mean, with occupancy being so high, certainly through the season, how are we going to get an event to come into town if they can't stay?
Yeah, no, that's it.
I mean, I think it's a big deal at some point, but they need to be included. I think that.
Well, the other thing is they've got some of them have facilities also that could be in conjunction with whatever the event is.
Right.
Again, I'm only talking about the few large events, but in that sense. Okay.
Well, in my breakdown of the different spaces, I've got gymnasium on here. And our recommendation to council was the NACUS facility gymnasium may be open for recreational use as the schedule allows. So that's pretty darn broad.
Mhm.
I mean, I think I wrote it thinking, well, the hours that the center is open for that primary use, we would figure out a process for the gymnasium to be open for recreational use during that time. That's kind of what I had my head wrapped around. Does anybody have other thoughts about gymnasium use?
Well, I did a little bit back when we were trying to rough out some kind of, operational cost structure. I mean, I would think that we would need, or the community would enjoy having evening access, which I believe is outside the 8 to 5 or whatever the hours are at the center. And that as I've thought more about it, I think that, this is truly going to be, it'll be much different in the winter months. I think there's a lot more opportunity for people to want to use it then, as opposed to in the summer when you can go out. And of course, you don't want to be indoors anyway, but But I do think that that there will be a desire to have access to the gym outside of the center's hours.
And I believe, yeah, you had it in your
Yeah, I mean,
operating cost at 7 to 10 PM.
Mhm.
So, it's in here, I guess. I don't know if that's facility manager, but how would you see that? Somebody having access from that time? Does there have to be staff?
well, yeah, well, I mean, I'll just share what my thoughts were is that you wouldn't really need, you'd want somebody on site while it was being used, but it would be, it would not be a full-time staff person. It would be somebody that we would hire on
Attendant kind of,
more of an attendant kind of thing, just so we've got, somebody in control of the facility. But during the hours that the facility is open, then staff would be available to take care of that.
This kind of brings up something.
okay, and you did have, sorry, but you did have gym attendant in here.
Mhm. Yeah.
This is something that I thought about for a long time, and what we might need to discuss is the idea of having volunteers. Getting a cadre of volunteers that might have to go through some level of training. So that they would then be responsible for the safety and security of the facility during that time. The other thing is the scheduling. If we set up a system where it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every evening, the gym was open. Unless something was scheduled over top of that.
Right.
Yeah,
And leave that as because that kind of use, the volunteer use of the gym by the community is kind of flexible. If we had somebody that was coming in to do an event, movie night or something, whatever. That could be overlaid, with proper notice. So that's just one way of scheduling a winter hours in the evenings. The other thing is, on the other end of the scale, I've had, when we first started talking about this thing, a lot of people talked to me about a senior morning walking.
That's what
gym.
Mhm.
And so you've got a time span that might be from like 6 AM to 9 AM. So you got a different scheduling problem there because you don't want to open that early officially, but a volunteer could handle that.
Sure.
Great idea.
okay, so I think we're gonna see how this one develops, since we've already got it in the budget for an attendant to keep it open for some hours, 3 hours daily or 3 hours, 5 days a week, it looked like is what you've got it in there. So I'm not sure we need to define that much more until we see some of the other pieces fall in place. And it would be as it says, as schedule allows, maybe
Right.
something scheduled.
Yeah, I would see it being that would fall into the schedule after all of the events and
Right.
all the other considerations. Although you probably do want to have a regular schedule for people to know about, and then they just have to check and make sure it's open.
And yeah, I don't know if there's a senior walking club that wants to volunteer to
Develop.
I
coordinate.
think so
I
too.
think we
Yeah.
have one. but
What's that?
I
Yeah,
think one would develop as soon as it start raining.
Yeah.
but it's certainly possible that they could create their own thing and, on a volunteer basis,
Sure.
make that happen.
Jazzercise folks could have the middle of the room.
Or
That would be entertaining.
or pickleball.
Okay, I like the structure. I like looking at the programming that the center will offer. I like beginning to look at the fee structure or use for third party. That feels good. It's not the way I initially saw this coming together, but I think that makes sense. So are we kind of good moving forward with that? So the next item would be what steps can we start to take toward the organization and formation of the nonprofit organization? We obviously want to get this thing up and have it be fully operational by the time they need to take it over, which means they need some advance time.
Right.
So it seems like we need some of those initial steps in organization of a nonprofit. What does that look like?
I see two things to start with. One would be, what technically do they need to do? What is the state law? What is the organizational format that needs to be created? I think we could line that out pretty quickly. It's usually easy to find on a website. But that's just general information. The other aspect is what would we be asking these folks to do? What is their job as that nonprofit? If we lined out a job description kind of thing, that would definitely help find volunteers. I know there's people that might be energized to do it. But again, if you're going to throw them for a loop about some other concept of the job.
It's kind of a hard situation because if you don't know what the programming is going to be, how do you know what the nonprofit's going to be? We could just call it Friends of Nicoos and they could support whatever. I mean, we've got that happening with HRAP already. Can't we use that as a model? And because they're running their own program and they're got educational programming and they're working with the city. And does that work for you, Bruce? I mean.
Oh, no, I wasn't going to comment on what you were talking
I
about.
think that's a really good model.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be, it's proven to work.
I'm not sure what model you're looking at, the
HRAP, how the HRAP is,
mutual operating agreement with the city or
well, I'm saying Friends of Haystack Rock are the nonprofit that works with HRAP. And HRAP is part of the city. I mean, I don't know how the whole structure works, but I'm just saying, it seems like we could do something similar.
it seems like our recommendation is we are going to assist in the formation of a nonprofit that has the entire operations, not what you're describing, which is a nonprofit providing some services to the city.
Oh, I know it's different, but I'm just saying,
I mean, certainly their bylaws, everything.
we don't know what we're gonna be what our program is. I'm saying a friend to Nicoos would be running the whole thing, but it, just like Kelly she's an executive director. We would have that same structure, but somehow it would be similar to, we would create a nonprofit that would be Friends of Nicoos, but they would be more powerful than Friends of.
Because they're running the whole operation.
Yeah, they run the whole operation.
Right.
So they've got to have the ability to be accountable to the city,
Right.
you know,
They're using their facility.
right? Well, and you're using the TLT money
Right.
as well. So, yeah, to me, I mean, I don't know that much about.
Yeah, there's a contract.
Stack, but I do think that this is a much different scope than that organization is my sense anyway. But I'd be willing to look at it to start. But I think there's some pieces that that aren't in that contract that are going to be important to.
Yeah, that's a weird one where the city and the nonprofit are kind of enmeshed, and I see that we're going to be totally separate. It's going to be a contract that's like, here, execute it, as opposed to, and I'm not sure. I've been out of Friends of Haystack Rock for a while, so I don't know.
I would actually avoid that kind of problem that they originally presented. I think they're working it out better, but what I think we're running into is two different issues. The operations of the facility and the program. I see those as pretty separate. Operations is making sure the executive director does what he's supposed to do, making sure the financials are lined up. Marketing the facility, web presence, bookkeeping and all that kind of stuff, research for funding, for grants for the facility. Yes, some of that delves into a programming aspect. But I said programming kind of as a subcommittee off of, so you have people that are focused on creating the curriculum
Mhm,
of various programs.
mhm.
That's a job in itself.
Yeah, there may be a job. It may be a program director
It
job.
might be a director.
Do we have that in the budget?
We've got executive director and we've got facility manager. So that's definitely one for us to take a look at. But I've also expected that a program director, I don't know, you're not going to get grants for staff. But
I really see it as you have a program director and then you have an executive director because it's
But the executive director is in
Yes.
charge in the program.
exactly, yeah. Because then the executive director could also manage the facility manager. I mean, you have
Right. No, the executive director is in charge of everything.
yeah, but I mean, they have a facility manager and they have a program director, right? I mean,
well, right now, under our 2-year operating cost budget, we have an executive director and a facility manager. So maybe that's something we need to assess. Do we need
I think that's
what's
also,
the facility manager doing? What was your thought on
Well,
that?
that's primarily, that was intended to be primarily set up, take down, somebody that's responsible for the maintenance, although I think it may be, I don't really know where that line is between what the facility takes care of and what the city's going to take care of exactly, but it should really just somebody that's watching out for the assets, the nets for the pickleball, whatever it is. And we talked about a program director, but I think I'm speaking for Carrie as well, felt like that probably wasn't going to be the position that gets filled first. And so early, in again, end of year one, the executive director would probably be
The program director.
probably as this thing starts up but it would definitely grow depending on success.
Okay,
That was our thought anyway.
I'm comfortable with that. I think we need to keep our eye on that because I think at some point.
we also have,
Director.
I mean, if you think of the executive director as also being somebody that deals with the grants, that's a big full-time job too. So, but anyway.
Okay, so forming a nonprofit or steps we can take. I obviously we have some there are bylaws and the formal registration with the state. Is anybody got experience in that here? Do you?
Yeah. So you're asking to just come up with a list of what we need to do to form a nonprofit in Oregon.
I think that would be a nice
Okay.
first step, but there may be things like mission statement that have to be part of that might be step 2.
Yeah.
But so,
Yeah, I'll do that.
okay, and if I can help
I will.
in that,
Okay,
I would too.
Okay.
So,
great.
I would ask if you have a nonprofit organization for dummies type of resource, if you could tell me where I could go and get some good information, I would be happy to do it.
good.
But I'm a risk, I don't want to just Google it because
Yeah, no, I would use the nonprofit Association of Oregon. That's the.
okay.
Let's put the 3 of us
There you go.
in that loop as far as starting to see what we have to do.
Right.
And maybe get some of those initial steps done. So any direction for us on?
Well, I think it's great that you already started the process by, have a acceptance already, so.
An acceptance to apply.
That's right.
Okay,
No, the check isn't in the mail.
Bruce, you had your hand up a while ago, did you? Did you say what you needed to say?
No, but thank you, Gary. Also, if whoever is doing this research can look into how the 501c3 was formed. Was it, if it was part of a city, did, like kind of it's a city facility, did the city help to form the 501c3, give seed money or something? How did that whole thing go? Or was it kind of, we're going to build this facility, somebody pick something up to manage it? I'd be interested in how that would work.
I would think the other part of this formula is the contract with the city.
Sure.
So
Yeah, it's a huge part of it.
I don't know if you have any suggestions on how we can, is that something that we can put Ashley on to at least start to rough out what that might look like? Or does she need more information to?
Ashley might hook us up with somebody that knows 501c3. She might, contract that or find somebody within her organization.
I'd like to get a start on making sure the city's interests are represented with a draft of a contract.
Mhm.
So why don't we see if we can include that in kind of our subcommittee, at least to get started.
Yeah, there's another thing too, is who picks who's going to be on or who decides is going to be on this 501c3?
Who's going to be on the original board of directors?
Pardon? I don't
Right.
know. I'd say who is that? Is that council appointed? Is that a bunch of people come together?
That's,
I was getting the impression that it's going to be us unless we come back and report back to council that, okay, now do you want to go with the steering committee? A separate steering committee? Sam had the idea of different interests being represented on the board. I think that may be a next step that we don't have to solve now, but go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think, yes, it's very important to figure out how to do that. 501c3s are built all the time,
Yes.
from scratch, right out of the box. So all it takes is 3 people to get together and say, I want to be a 501c3.
Yeah. It's not rocket science.
Yeah, it's almost, but not quite. There's a lot of weird paperwork to get through, but
Yeah.
in that sense, having an initiation group of some kind and a decision model that we could draw from might be beneficial down the road. That's kind of why I proposed what I did. I'm not stuck with that, but it is just an idea. Shoot, I had another idea. I'm gonna come back.
Yeah, with Oregon Coast Visitors Association, we assisted in the formation of an Oregon Coast Trail Foundation. And essentially reached out and found people that would make a good startup group for that. And then once it's up and running, they're on their own.
What we can literally do as this group is advertise that we're gonna have a town meeting. Call for volunteers and say the first 5 people are. From there on, we hand them all the information.
Please don't.
I wonder about that too.
but
You're not wrong. The first
Yeah.
5 who want to are
I
elected.
used to work for Southwest Airlines.
Okay, we are nearing my goal of an hour and a half, and I feel like we have some marching orders and can start moving forward, but we have scheduling future meetings and good of the order to go here. Sam, did you have something burning you want to get in before?
One thing small possibility that I think we missed, or it might be meshed in the 3 groups that we've created. Rules and guidelines. We need to create some rules and guidelines for how the facility is used. Some of that is set for us, like occupancy. But one of the things I could think of is noise control. How do we make sure we don't have a loud group outside that certain hours of the night. Things
Hey,
like,
hello.
Yeah, I do see that as overlapping into Carrie's territory, but go ahead,
Hello,
Carrie.
I've got a really nice 6-page contract for you to consider.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm not joking, and it's all grown. First of all, we used a boilerplate when we first started, and then we just started customizing the contract as we had problems. So, what is, rowdy behavior, kind of stuff. And so there's attorney stuff in there, and then there's a lot of Tim and Carrie in there that just says, this is, let's just be very clear that, your event will end if, these lines are crossed. And it can be just, Sam, it can be as simple as Oregon State. You can't smoke in the building. Don't do it. You're done. You're gone. Your event's closed down.
well,
So
Sam, you just gave your
okay.
committee a little more work.
We'll mesh it
yeah,
in.
Yes,
that's
mesh it
you
in.
guys. The deal is to look at our contract or look at some other contracts with, and then say this is what this is useful for us. This is not useful for us, because it's all you're going to customize everything. But there's some really good boilerplate out there to play with.
Good.
So Carrie, did you start this vineyard and start
Yeah.
the event? Okay, so it wasn't
Yeah,
in
we built
existence
it.
when you-
Yeah, we
okay,
built it from
gotcha.
scratch.
Okay.
We built it from
Okay.
from a
Thanks.
little red farmhouse.
Okay.
So I think we probably need 2 weeks. But the earliest we should be looking at is dates 2 weeks from today. That might be an option, and I'm assuming with the number of dates that I set aside for meetings
I
today.
was gonna say, we don't have Sundays are available.
The 25th, you're talking? 25th?
I'm not talking anything. I'm talking to Jen is what I'm doing. So for her to start maybe with the 25th and see where we're at from there.
So Monday, the 25th is open. If you guys wanted to meet on Monday, the 25th.
I have a.
I have a conflict too.
Okay.
Can we skip one more? Can we go into October? Because we're hot and heavy in harvest like right now. And so we are really thinking we're going to be finished by early October. So I would
We've
like
got-
to have some time to do some due diligence with my assignment.
We've got the 3rd, 4th, and 5th already set aside for hold for city council. And then I'm incredibly busy starting the week of the 9th.
Okay, can we do
Through the
but
rest
you
of the
can't do the
month,
second?
honestly, but-
Can you do the second?
Oh, can I have 4 meetings in 4 nights? Sure.
Oh, Gary, we're just reporting in.
And I have emails out to multiple groups to try to get those situated. So I'm hoping we can release a lot of those dates that we didn't need.
Before you release one, give it to us.
Yeah.
But should we try to pick something? I mean, do we want to pick the 2nd?
I'm gonna be in Sisters, but I think I can make it back by then, by 5:30, I hope. Yeah, I'll try. Otherwise, I'll Zoom. Yeah,
The 2nd at 5:30 is available here.
The 2nd at 5:30 is available.
Let's go ahead and pencil that in and please. Please release some of those other dates.
Yeah.
Please release.
It looks like the 9th might be being one that we're using. And so I'm hoping to hear back from the other 2 people. And plus we have code audit on Wednesday. So hopefully we can get that situated as well. So hopefully by the end of the week, we have some answers.
Okay,
the 9th would be great for me too.
no, the 9th is a hold for city council.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
think the 2nd.
Yeah,
Okay. I am.
And the 9th, by the way, is Indigenous Peoples' Day.
yes, it is.
It is, yeah. I think we need to make sure Dick is available. Yeah, for that.
Yeah.
And that Andrew is back.
Okay, so I'm gonna book it as a hold for right now and then shoot an email out to Dick and Andrew and then reply to everyone and let you guys know.
Okay, thanks.
We're saying the 2nd or the 9th.
But 2nd.
Okay, we have good of the order. Seeing none. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Gary.
Good job, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Barb.
Thanks for dialing in, Gary.
Yeah, have fun harvesting.
I go, yes, thank you. I gotta go stir the black beans. See you guys. Bye.